three main priorities. One is food security, which has become even more important due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's observe that. Because when the Jokowi government, the second Jokowi government, I should say, came in power in October 2019, there was a lot of focus, of course, on innovation and technology, infrastructure. But the COVID-19 crisis had made all of us realize, that it's important to go back to the basics, and that food security is really important for Indonesia. It is a sector where millions of people are working, where Indonesia is a colossal opportunity. Indonesia is blessed with massive resources. It's a very fertile country. Thanks to COVID myself, I'm becoming a small urban farmer, and I find it always unbelievable to see if you drop a seed in the garden, you can basically watch it grow. It is unbelievable. The combination of fertile soil, sun, and water is an incredible mix. So it's important, and you see the government also focusing more on food production, food security, and of course the area behind it where we are working, which has to do with research, education. And then the good news is that the Netherlands and Indonesia have so much to learn from each other. The Netherlands, as you may know, is the second largest agricultural exporter in the world. So there is a lot of knowledge in all sorts of fields in the Netherlands, and we're happy to facilitate the interaction of what the Dutch have to offer with what Indonesia needs, but also the other way around. Indonesia is an enormous country where there is many things to learn about food production. There's many things to research, and that is also happening. So very pleased to support that. The other two priorities under the OKP program, they focus on water management, water research. I'm sure that will appear in next sessions of the Orange Talks. And of course, we also collaborate a lot on security and rule of law, which has something to do with the joint legal DNA between the Netherlands and Indonesia. So many things to discuss with each other. Second, I wish to welcome Nicole Metz, that I shared this with Dito. And Nicole happens to be someone with who I worked a long time ago together in Oxfam Novib. I think it is at least 20 years ago. I wouldn't even know precise, but the Netherlands is a small country, so I'm very happy, Nicole. I was to see your name appearing here on the agenda and as a speaker, so looking forward to listen to you. So welcome to this session, and thank you for your time and your willingness to contribute and participate.
Thank you.
And we have all turned a bit older by now. And the other thing, of course, I heard Dito say something about it. I also cannot resist to call upon everybody to have a look at the website of WINNER, the Week of Indonesia Netherlands Education and Research, a major event that we are organizing next week. Nuffic NASO together with LIPI, ALMI, with NWO and KNAW and the Dutch Embassy in Jakarta. It will run on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 24, 25, 26 November, in the morning in the Netherlands, in the afternoon in Indonesia, more or less like we are meeting now. We will have a double interview with the Dutch Minister of Education and the Indonesian Minister for Research and Technology, Pak Bambang Brojonegoro. And in the closing session, we will have an interview with the Indonesian Minister for Education, Pak Nadiem Makarim, And in between, there's a really interesting program with sessions on biodiversity, renewable energy, climate change, culture, justice, you name it. It shows the richness of the education and research collaboration between Indonesia and the Netherlands. So please have a look at www.winner.or.id for the whole program and for registration. So I have done my job in advertising our main event next week. So back to you, Pa Olil, as the moderator to facilitate the event. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pa Peter, for your welcoming speech. And as Pa Peter mentioned before, Orange Talk intends to bring together expertise and practitioners from both Indonesia and Netherlands and promote knowledge and experience exchange in strategic issues such as food and agriculture, water and infrastructure, and security and rules of law. And we also invite the Netherlands alumni here to improve their network and learning from different perspectives or sharing maybe their experiences in such thematic issues. So, and our today's event is the first series of Orange Talk in the issues of food and agriculture. So, and we choose the theme transforming Indonesia's food system to achieve sustainable development goals. So maybe the question is what happened with our food system today? And why should it be transformed? And why are we using the term food system? And how is it in line with the sustainable development goals? So, or why not just food security or food sovereignty that we use today in Indonesian food law and policy documents and programs? And maybe I will explain a little bit why we choose these topics. So one of the reasons why we take these topics because of the current challenges that we are facing to ensure food security for all. I'm sorry, maybe I will mix Indonesian and the English language because we have many participants also from both Indonesia and also outside the region. So salah satu alasan mengapa kita menggunakan tema mentransformasi sistem pangan karena saat ini kita menghadapi banyak tantangan dalam memenuhi ketahanan pangan di Indonesia, termasuk di seluruh dunia secara global. And the current traditional food security policy and programs are still, prevailing the productivist approach or only focusing on the production side. In the few regions of the world, particularly also in Indonesia, inadequate food still the major cause of food and nutrition insecurity. For example, in Atlas of Food Security and Food Vulnerability, some regions such as Papua, Maluku, Nusa Tenggara Timur, Central Kalimantan, and some islands in Sumatra are still having high food insecurity. They are a red zone. And also, the recent Global Nutrition Report into 2020 also highlights that the inequality of our food system is the major problem of today's food and nutrition insecurity. At the same time, also our environment has been degraded and also deforestation and etc. due to the massive extraction and most of that from agricultural purposes. So jadi yang saya jelaskan tadi bahwa saat ini kebijakan dan program pangan kita masih sangat bertumpu pada fokus pada produksi. Sementara di beberapa tempat di dunia, khususnya di Indonesia, kita masih menemui banyak kasus-kasus kerawanan pangan seperti di beberapa daerah seperti Papua, Maluku, Nusa Tenggara Timur, Kalimantan Tengah, dan beberapa pulau-pulau kecil di Sumatera. Dan laporan terbaru nutrisi global menyebutkan bahwa salah satu permasalahan utama ada food insecurity atau kerawanan pangan ada di dalam sistem pangan kita yang timpang. Jadi ketimpangan dalam sistem pangan itu adalah salah satu masalah utamanya. Dan saat bersamaan juga kita menghadapi tantangan perubahan lingkungan di mana deforestasi terus berlanjut, berbagai macam pemilik lahan di berbagai tempat, dan karena juga misalnya ekstraktif yang sangat masif Itu semua diakibatkan oleh tujuan-tujuan untuk juga pertanian salah satunya. Itu yang harus menjadi perhatian utama di tema kita pada hari ini. So, okay, and therefore we are delighted to have our speakers today. Yeah, we will talk about food system issues from different perspectives, ranging from policymakers, practitioners, and researchers. And the first speaker, yeah, is Pak Jarod Indarto. Pak Jarod Indarto is a deputy director of food from the Ministry of Planning and Development, Bappenas of the Republic of Indonesia. And he's the alumnus of Groningen University, the Netherlands, and majoring in environmental and infrastructure planning. And our second speaker here, Nicole Metz. Yeah, thank you very much for coming. And she's an international development professional and has extensive experience in policy and advocacy, both national and international level. And she's currently a senior knowledge broker in food and business knowledge platform, the Netherlands, and also knowledge facilitator, AgriProfocus. And previously, yeah, as Pak Peter mentioned, she worked for 10 years in Oxfam Novib related to the policy issues. And Nicole is Wageningen University alumni, same as me. So we are in the same institution. And yeah, thank you for coming, Nicole. I really appreciate it. And the third speaker is Novalia Nurfitriani. Nova is a young researcher in AK3 at the Center for Social Analysis based in Bandung, West Java. She graduated from International Institute of Social Studies in The Hague, majoring agrarian food and environmental studies. Her research was about local food. Yeah, I remember I invited also Nova when we were in Wageningen to speak in front of Wageningen students about her research in local food in Maluku. And recently, yeah, Nova works related to youth and agriculture issues. Maybe also Nova will deliver that topics later. So thank you for all of the speaker, Pak Jarod, Nova, and Nicole for coming today. And so let's begin our main session. First, I'd like to invite Pak Jarod Indarto to deliver his presentation. And maybe you have time like 10 until 15 minutes for your presentation. And maybe we will finish all of the presentation first, and then we will open the question and answer. Jadi kita akan memulai presentasi ketiga pembicara pertama terlebih dahulu, kemudian akan dibuka oleh sesi tanya jawab. Baik, kepada Bapak Jarod Indarto, kami persilahkan.
Terima kasih Pak Ulil Aksan. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu sekalian. So, how many minutes do I have? 50.
10 sampai 15 menit, Pak.
Yeah. Oh, baik. Terima kasih. First of all, it is my honor to be invited in this discussion, not only related to the Netherlands alumni, but also the topic. The topic is very relevant with my job. Actually, I'm working at the Directorate of Food and Agriculture, Bappenas, which is kind of coordinating ministry responsible for developing planning and also budgeting at national level. And also thank you for Ulil to introduce me. I graduated from Groningen University 2006 in that time from spatial science. Actually, in that program is a kind of a double degree program between Groningen University and ITB Bandung, Institute of Technology in Bandung. And I continue my PhD in Hiroshima University related to the topic of environmental economics. May I share my screen?
Iya Pak, iya. Bapak sudah jadi co-host, jadi bisa share screen.
Oh ya, baik. Sudah terlihat ya Bapak Ibu ya?
Sudah Bapak, sudah.
Ya, ya baik. Before we discuss further on food security and also food system in Indonesia, I would like to bring our perspective into a broader view, which is at national level in Indonesia. How actually our national planning is developed and also designed. As you may know, probably that we already have 5 years midterm planning, which is 5 years development planning, and it is legalized as a peraturan presiden, presidential decree 2020. And in that midterm development planning, we have 7 national priorities. Ranging from economic aspect, regional development, human resources, culture, infrastructure, environment, and also politics and security. And we will focus on the first national priority, which is about economy transformation. I will go back later where we will focus on the first national priority because it is where the food security and nutrition is a frame under the national development planning. We will go back later to deepen our food system in Indonesia. Before we are going to discuss our food system, allow me to bring several macro food system performance in Indonesia. I only put 2 indicators here. One is a global food security index released by the Economist, if I'm not mistaken. And second one later, I will show you our global hunger index, how this index is showing the performance of our food security. As you can see in that graph, actually year by year, our food security is growing better from 2018 until 2019, and we inform you that this index is adopted by our midterm development planning as one of the national indicators. As you can see in the yellow bar, we put the target of this index until 2024. And then we look at into more detail on our position and in 2019. While we are going better in this index, still we are still facing many challenges, especially related to the quality and safety on our food consumption. And the second one is related to the sustainability on our natural resource to support our food system actually. So this index is in the scale of 100. Semakin besar angka semakin baik ya Bapak Ibu ya, semakin besar angka semakin baik. So more means better. The meaning of this number. And then on global hunger index. Global hunger index is a bit different compared to the previous index, since the previous index concern on the input level. The global hunger index is more showing the performance of our food security at the impact level. Impact level means I will show you the indicator that that build this index. The meaning of number is that less is better, because all numbers in here, the indicator is related to the prevalence. So less is better in here. So as we can see, that the trend from 2000 until this year, we can see that the trend is decreasing, but actually it means we are getting better. If we look at into more detail on the indicator, because this index is composite index, from 4 indicators, we can see that we are still having problem on stunting and also wasting. So those 2 index, I think both are in line. The first index, we can see that in the consumption indicator, we are still have a problem and issue on that. And in this global hunger index, we also have problem on stunting and wasting. And then we go to the framework of SDGs. In SDGs, food are mostly located in the goal 2 and also goal 12, if I'm not mistaken. Goal 12 is related to the food loss and waste, and goal 2, we can see here, hunger is there, malnutrition, agricultural productivity, sustainable production, our genetic diversity, and also investment rate and market. Those are also our issues in food system in Indonesia. For example, hunger. Hunger, we have still around 7 until 9% of prevalence of undernourished people in whole population, and the percentage is not too much. But if we convert that percentage into the amount of number of hunger people, then it will come up with very huge number of undernourished people. Malnutrition, we have not only deficiency of macronutrient, but also micronutrient and also obesity. Agricultural productivity as well, we still have a problem with farmers' welfare and etc. Sustainability and so forth. On the other side, from our domestic condition, we still have many issues that we need to concern on. Farmer welfare, as I mentioned, and I inform you that in this year of APBN, our national budget next year budget at national level, APBN 2021, the farmers term of trade, nilai tukar petani itu sekarang menjadi salah satu indikator pembangunan nasional. Kalau nanti Bapak Ibu atau teman-teman bisa mencermati isi dari APBN di 2021. And another thing which is interesting is also DDP. DDP is desirable diet pattern atau skor pola pangan harapan. Kita masih punya isu untuk rendahnya konsumsi sayur, buah, bahkan konsumsi protein hewani kita masih sangat rendah dibanding yang lain. Dan juga terkait dengan stunting, mikronutrien kita sangat concern untuk hal-hal tersebut. Jadi kita tidak hanya harus concern pada gizi yang makro, tapi juga harus mulai ke gizi yang mikro. Just to remind you where the food security program priority is located, and ini adalah bagaimana kami atau pemerintah merumuskan program prioritas pangan itu. So until 2024 at least, our food and nutrition security development is framed under big 5 aspects. One is related to food consumption. Second one is our food supply. Third one is human resources in agriculture sector, of course, and also in food sector. Fourth is natural resources, and the last one is food governance. Food governance it includes the food system, because we see that the institutional arrangement is also matter. We need to see and look at into more detail how our regulation and also how our institutional framework are developed toward a more sustainable food system in the future. And under midterm development planning, we formulate some important policy narratives, including local food, farmers corporation, agroforestry is there also, traceability. We are going to develop this one to be connected to the global market. And also some approach on sustainable, we put it in as our policy at national level, such as sustainable jurisdiction and so forth. However, after pandemic comes, then the government is rethinking again to see how resilient is and how sustainable is our food system, and also how good is our planning. After that, then we map several issues that we need to put more emphasis on that. Related to the domestic food capacity, we have to increase our domestic capacity to provide more available food supply, and local food, including the industrialization of local food itself, food access, because after the pandemic, we have problem with distribution, transportation, and also logistic. And in the field, we can see that the middleman is also a big problem in Indonesia. So market distribution efficiency does matter. Farmer corporation, and the last one is vulnerable households, because we have to make sure that all people have food to be fulfilled. Another important thing is regionalization, or we are discussing about how can we localize our food system, because in every region they have different characteristics, as mentioned by Mas Ulil. In several parts, especially in the eastern part of Indonesia, vulnerable food vulnerable region are still there. So then we are trying to have what we call it food system at local level. It is still under discussion. So your input and also your proposal or some insight from dari teman-teman akan sangat membantu kita untuk merumuskan hal ini. And another problem behind this issue is that decentralization, because we have to realize that cooperation among a region is still a problem in Indonesia. However, we cannot have resilient food system if among region they do not have a good collaboration. And the last one is at planning level. In Bapenas and also in the national ministries, we are trying to shift the approach of planning and budgeting. If we see the whole items that we discussed before, all are in line with global food system. As you can see in the left side, there is global system released by FAO in 2014. But the problem is we have to improve our mechanism in planning and budgeting. Then we we are starting to a bit do the improvement. Why if kalau di dahulu kita mulai dari perencanaan yang pertanian pangan itu kita mulai dari sisi produksi, how much we can produce and where, and now we are trying to shift that approach. So then we start from the consumption. Apa sih sebenarnya yang kita butuhkan untuk memenuhi kebutuhan pangan dan kebutuhan gizi dari masyarakat, berapa banyak dan ada di mana. Baru kita runut mundur, sebaiknya yang diproduksi itu adalah seperti apa dan seberapa banyak dan sebaiknya di mana untuk memenuhi demand tadi. That's kind of improvement in progress at planning level and budgeting level. It is my final remark. If we are talking about transformation, then we need to have we need to move from the previous condition to the future condition that we desire. In food system perspective, I think we have to change several, not to change, but to improve several things. Systematic and integrated approach must be promoted more. and also the perspective of planning, not only short term, but it must be in the long term perspective, and it must be supported by a kind of evidence-based activity or analytical works. Sectoral wise to intersectoral wise and collaboration to this is still our problem, not only at national level but also in local level. And now government is promoting the multi-stakeholders process in all government activities, including the food security and nutrition issues, of course. So we collaborate with private sector, with kelompok tani or farmers association, with international NGO, research institution, and etc. In SDGs, for example, we support several SDG center in several universities, Bogor, Pajajaran, Makassar, dan lain sebagainya. And also we are committed to all food initiative at global level. For example, food system summit that will be done next year, 2021. And also, for example, food smart city, it is a part of Pakta Milan dan lain sebagainya. Jadi kita aktif sekali untuk bisa berkomitmen dalam inisiatif global. I think I will close this presentation by citing our food law. Mungkin teman-teman atau Bapak Ibu nanti bisa membaca kembali, tadi sudah disampaikan Pak U. Yang menarik bagi saya sendiri adalah walaupun food law itu ditetapkan di 2012, kata-kata food system itu sudah ada di sana. Dan kita sudah paham bahwa food system terminologi itu baru berkembang mungkin 2014-2015. Jadi kita patut bangga dengan ini, tapi itu menjadi tantangan kita untuk mewujudkan food system. Terima kasih Pak Ulil dan Bapak Ibu sekalian. Waktu kami kembalikan.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Jarod atas prestasinya. Thank you Pak Jarod for your presentation. So what we got here is the current government of Indonesia through the Bappenas has been currently taking up food system concept in national policy documents. So as Pak Jarod mentioned before, it's a presidential regulation number 2020. And in national planning documents about under the economic transformations, which is transforming also the food system. And Pak Jarod has explained about the strategies, and I think it's really comprehensive information about how to develop a sustainability in our food system using, for example, the paradigm of long-term perspective, also multi-stakeholders and many others. I think this is a very important information for us, for the speaker, also for the participants about food system in the current governmental policy documents. Jadi terima kasih Pak Jarod, informasi yang disampaikan tadi mengenai rancangan food system yang saat ini tengah dijalankan pemerintah, yang perpresnya baru dikeluarkan nomor 18 tahun 2020. I think this presidential regulation is freshly from the oven, because this year just released, dan itu akan menjadi tantangan buat kita untuk memberikan masukan. I also noted that Pak Jarod about localizing food system is also a challenge, So everyone here maybe can contribute their ideas, input or proposal to Bapenas, and Pak Jarod frankly mentioned it about yeah, we are open for many ideas about how to regulating and on how to collaborate in developing localization of food systems. So I think thank you very much, Pak Jarod. And the next presenter will be Novalia Nurfitriani. Yeah, I wonder how researchers' perspective in the food system issues currently mentioned by Pak Jarod, and especially in the micro level issues. Ya, terutama di micro level bagaimana food system dikorelasikan atau dihubungkan dengan isu-isu pedesaan, isu-isu petani, terutama misalnya isu regenerasi petani. So this is important for us to and other participant also will with the early career food issues like Novalia Novitriani, a young researcher from Akatiga, will deliver about agriculture issues in rural areas and also maybe in urban. So maybe Novalia, the time is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ulil, can you help me in sharing the presentation?
Sure, yeah.
Hello everyone. To Pak Jarod from Bapenas, Nicole from Knowledge for Food, and my friend Ulil Asan from Unhas. It's nice to see you all. Thank you to Nufik Neso, Pak Peter, and the Kingdom of the Netherlands for the opportunity for me to share some thoughts along with wonderful speakers. And thank you as well for supporting us Student Worthy during our study in the Netherlands. And thank you to everyone here for joining this webinar. I'm Novalia Nurfitriani, alumna of ISS The Hague, graduated in 2018. And now I'm working as researcher at Akatiga. And today I'm here to share you some thoughts about youth involvement in food sustainable systems. Pak Jarod has mentioned about the food system in macro scale, and maybe I will deliver the micro scale about the youth involvement in sustainable food system. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so yeah, as we know that food systems is a complex web of activities. It covers all the ways in which food is produced, distributed, and consumed. However, this is then the pathways from farm to plate, but also includes activities upstream of farm, such as research and also the supply of agricultural inputs, and downstream of consumers, and also including governance, institutions, and regulations. And it is also involving relevant actors in each activities. So today agriculture is facing major challenges, including how to feed a growing world population, how to reduce rural poverty in the world, and how to manage the ecosystem. And the current food system, intensification and consolidation are some of the large-scale trends inherent to the current food system. It is claimed that today's production is increasing to meet demand, while an estimated 800 million people had to sleep hungry each night. And presently, an estimated additional 100 million people may experience a crisis level of hunger due to the pandemic. In addition, the current food system are also responsible for 70% of the water extracted from the nature and causing 60% of biodiversity loss and generate up to a third of human greenhouse gas emissions. And this exacerbates environmental degradation. Next. So, yeah. Over the past few decades, it has become clear that a more holistic framework is needed to solve the complex issue. To realize the SDGs, the food system needs to be reshaped to be more productive, second, yet more inclusive for the poor and marginalized group, and sustainable and environmentally resilient and capable of providing healthy and nutritious diets for all. So this graph I adapted from FAO about the sustainability in food system. So to be sustainable, food system development needs to generate positive values in 3 dimensions at once: economic, social, and environmental. On the economic dimension, A food system is considered sustainable if the activities carried out commercially or fiscally feasible. Such activities should generate economic benefits or added value for all categories of stakeholders. And on the social dimension, a food system is considered sustainable if there is equality in distribution, in the distribution of economic added value by taking into account vulnerable groups and including young people. And the last one on the environmental dimension, sustainability is determined by ensuring that the impacts of food system activities on the environment are neutral or positive. Okay, and this will only be possible with the work of multiple actors and multi-sectoral efforts. One of the most relevant actors in this process is young generation. Okay, next. Yeah. Okay, I will share briefly about the Indonesian agriculture. So the agricultural sector in Indonesia is dominated by small-scale farmers and are aging. And data from Statistic Indonesia notes that in 2013, there were around 26 million farmer households and a decrease from 2003 as many as 5 million farmers households. And in terms of land area owned, in 2013, farmers with a land area of less than 2 hectares reached 22 million households, or up to 87% of total farmers' household. And the majority of them only own less than a half hectares of land. And the second, about the young farmers, we know that Indonesia needs more young farmers, and the data from Ministry of Agriculture, there are only 2.7 million young farmers in Indonesia. And it seemed a downward trend because from 2017 to 2018, for example, there was a decrease around 400,000 young people. Okay, because in fact that youth is important element as change maker, especially in the agricultural sector, because they have strength of collectivity and creativity. And the third one, our farmers still practicing a conventional way of farming, such as excessive use of fertilizers, pesticides, and also applying monoculture system. So although dominated by small-scale farmers, the existence of them, the small-scale farmers, is very important in providing food. These small farmers can become pioneers to avoid or prevent a possible food crisis, like what we are experiencing now in this COVID pandemic. The GDP of the agricultural sector increased in the second quarter of 2020. That was 15%. Which previously was only 12%. So compared to other sector, GDP of agriculture is increasing. So small-scale farmers have been and will continue to be the largest food producers in the world. But however, they also make up the majority of the people who suffer from hunger and malnutrition. So it is necessary to strengthen small farmers who are mostly in various remote villages in Indonesia. So, okay, next. Yeah, as mentioned before that we need to strengthen the small-scale farmers, and as also mentioned as well about the number of young people is decreasing, while we see youth as stakeholders in the food system and as potential agent of change. Therefore, on this webinar, I will dig deeper into the involvement of youth in the food system. So let's jump to the ACCA3 studies. The series of ACCA3 studies 2013 until present, which intersect with issues of rural food security, access to land for the marginalized poor, and farmer regeneration, shows that the younger generation is interested in agriculture. However, there are some challenges they face. So first, the problem with youth involvement is that agriculture is still dominated by the elderly, and younger generation has a weak bargaining position. Therefore, it is quite difficult for youth to get into farming and innovate. Second one, the elites and foreign investors own most of the arable agricultural land. It causing inequality of access to land, especially for young people and marginalized groups such as women, landless farmers, peasants, and agricultural workers. Access to land remains a prerequisite for young farmers to strengthen their position and generate higher income. Third, quite a number of young people interested to farm, but they don't have a piece of land to work on. Many young would-be farmers have trouble buying or even renting land. So actually the land is available. However, it's just difficult to access land for certain groups, including for young people. So Akatiga found that there is an opportunity in the village, that is village land can be one of land resources to be accessed and utilized by youth who are interested in farming. Next. Okay. Based on aforementioned findings, Akatiga currently conducting further advocacy research to open the access to land for young people and other marginal groups. The research is still going on in Kebumen, Central Java. In Central Java, especially in Kebumen, every village has assets, which one of them is in the form of land. Village land, or particularly in Tanah Kemakmuran, in Bahasa, can be leased to local communities to be managed as agricultural land. However, the practice of leasing the village land is not in the favor of the marginalized and young people included, because it is often given to people who auction off the village land for a high price. So in that way, young people do not have the opportunity to rent it, considering their condition is not yet strong financially. Given that, and from the results of previous Akatiga research, we are currently conducting advocacy so that young people have the access to land and they are entrusted with managing village land for farming. Next. Okay, so now we formulate a region regulation or peraturan bupati in Bahasa, which becomes a guideline for villages in managing village land. In this regulation, we incorporate the principles of village land utilization as follows. So first one, village land, particularly Tanah Kemakmuran, is a public asset. Therefore, village land must be used as widely as possible for the community. Second, is it okay? May I just continue?
Yeah.
Okay. Second, allocate village land for young people, for young people and marginal groups. And the third, land allocation could support additional income or employment opportunity in agricultural sector for youth. And fourth, giving women access to land as one of empowerment strategy. And the last one, the proper allocation of village land to be managed as agricultural land helps ensure food and environmental sustainability. So this region regulation is currently in the assessment phase in the legal section of the Kebumen Regional Secretariat Office. So hopefully it will be issued soon. This regulation actually has the possibility to be adapted in other regions in Indonesia, but still we have to consider their respective context and conditions. This could have a positive impact on the motivation of young people not to migrate to cities and also to maintain food security. And I think it will also support the food system at local level that mentioned by Pak Jarod earlier. And next, okay. Yeah. So before we composing a peraturan bupati or region regulation, we conducted a regulatory review to ensure that our Peraturan Bupati is in synergy with other regulation at the local, national, and international levels. As we can see here, from the local level, there is RPJMD, and national level, there is RPJMN. And for the international levels is the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in goals number 2. Okay, next. Yeah. So why is giving youth access to land important? Because when young people receive land management rights, we can encourage them to adopt more sustainable and environmentally friendly agricultural practices. For example, innovatively by using appropriate technology and developing local food. And I think this is also aligned with the Bappenas program or strategy earlier. And the second one is strengthening agriculture as one of employment opportunities for youth and can provide additional income. And of course, to support regenerations of farmers. Furthermore, we hope that the involvement of young people can maintain our food system towards a more sovereign and sustainable. Therefore, I think all stakeholders need to work together to transform the agricultural sector to become a more youth-friendly and stimulating environment. Okay, next. Yeah. Okay, that's all that I can share. Thank you for your attention. Terima kasih and dank u wel.
Ya, baik. Terima kasih Nova. Thank you for your very firm presentation about the local issue. I think it's really relevant when Pak Jarod explained about the micro in the national level, and then you mentioned and then you explained about how Akatiga doing advocacy in the very local level, in the village level and district level. So thank you again for your presentation. And now I wonder how the food system approach is currently promoted in the Netherlands. Yeah, after we did a presentation about Indonesian case, the national level and also in micro level, in district level, and I would like to invite Nicole Metz to bring her topic to us about maybe a lot of that can we learn from the Netherlands issues about how the food system approach, the concept. So Nicole, please, the time is yours. You're still mute. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Ulil. And also thank you to Mr. Peter for the introductions earlier on. I'm happy to meet you all. I also thank the other speakers, Mr. Tajarot and Mrs. Novalia. I really appreciate it already to listen to all of you. So thanks for that. Welcome everybody. Nice to meet virtually with a big group I see from Indonesia and different countries. Good afternoon to you all. My name is Nicole Metz. As was explained, I am based in the Netherlands, and I will present some thoughts on food systems approaches that we have learned as Netherlands Food Partnership. I will open my screen to start my presentation. I hope it will work. Please let me know if you can see it properly.
We can see it.
I try to make it a bit bigger with the dia. This is the size I think that works. Is that correct?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes. So in this presentation, I will present the Netherlands Food Partnership, which is a newly created partnership which is based on the foundations of the work of AgriProFocus, a network organization, and the Food and Business Knowledge Platform. We are in transition, so some of you have seen me as Food and Business Knowledge Platform. Others have possibly known AgriProFocus in the Netherlands. Together, this forms the Netherlands Food Partnership. What I will do is introduce the next Netherlands Food Partnership. Then I will talk about the food systems approach and how it could contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. And I will focus a bit further on strategies to apply food systems as a concept in different activities that you all are also engaged in. And of course, also look a bit into the challenges of how that could be done. Maybe to disappoint you, I will not talk too much about the Netherlands. Some of you in this audience have worked in the Netherlands themselves or studied. I will focus on our international work because as a Netherlands Food Partnership, we are mainly involved in food security challenges globally. And we work in Africa and Asia primarily. So it will not be that much about the Netherlands, but there could be a link. Let me quickly move into the presentation. So the NFP, the Netherlands Food Partnership, has been created because the world is not on track to achieve SDG 2. We've seen the progress in Indonesia, but also still the worries about food security in Indonesia. But this is the same in different countries in the world. So the background of our work is also that systemic approaches are needed to work towards the different objectives of well-functioning food systems and so the ecological, economical, and the food security objectives, the social objectives. The expectation is that working together can create synergy because multi-stakeholder partnerships and coalitions can jointly do more than one single actor on their own. It's also expected that if you work in a systemic way, that it is possible to find innovative solutions and to tackle particularly the trade-offs, the areas where there could be tensions between one goal and the other. And why are we based in the Netherlands and do this? Well, people who have created a Netherlands Food Partnership, the Dutch government and others, say that the Netherlands can really contribute in those two areas because different Netherlands players have a role to play in food security, with programs, with trade, with innovative capacity. And there is a lot of history and experience in multi-stakeholder collaboration. And there is a lot of innovation power. So the Netherlands wants us to be a partner of different countries. Well, you've seen so in the NUFIC programs, you've seen so through the Netherlands Embassy program in Indonesia. And the Netherlands wants to do that in different countries in the world. Of course, always in partnership with the country stakeholders at the first place, because they and you know what is the best in your country. But the Netherlands is happy to be a partner. As I said, this is a follow-up to AgriProFocus and the Food and Business Knowledge Platform. And maybe it's good to say also we are a multi-stakeholder agent, so we are funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands, but we are independent, so I'm not a government official myself. So we work with academic institutes, we work with private sector, we work with development organizations and with the government as an independent platform organization. The purpose of the Netherlands Food Partnership is to enable collaboration between international partners and Dutch organizations, and this in view of achieving changes that are needed for more sustainable food systems. Because those changes are, of course, urgently needed. We have seen an example of the land access issue that Mrs. Novalia has explained. So many other changes are needed to get those more sustainable food systems. And of course, the more sustainable food systems are part of the agenda to achieve SDG 2, Sustainable Development Goal 2, with its several dimensions. It's about ending hunger, food and nutrition security. So it's also got the nutrition dimension. And it's also about promoting sustainable agriculture that delivers on ecological goals and that is climate smart. So this powerful collaboration we facilitate between actors is meant to really help bigger impacts. Still a bit about NFP, Netherlands Food Partnership. What do we do? Because it could be a bit theoretical. So in the work we do now and also what we did in the past years is really connecting people. You can follow the circle from around the clock. So we connect people, we help fostering right collaboration and collaborative agreements. Then we connect knowledge also to make sure the knowledge of different stakeholders works together. People can co-create solutions. Jointly, we facilitate the fostering of innovation sometimes in collaboration with, research institutes that really do long-term research, but sometimes it could also be innovative ideas of small business that we find a space for. Jointly there is learning, and in the as a result of all that, actors become better, they work better together, and if we have good solutions, this will be used also for communication and for advocacy. Well, this is indeed something we do recently as NFP, but as I said, some of the similar work has been done already in the previous years. So this is a bit about my organization and our approach. And I heard in the previous presentation also the importance of multi-stakeholder collaboration was highlighted by Mr. Jarrod and also by Mrs. Novalia within the youth community. And in fact, that's also what we want to support, that in different countries, and then we talk about Asia, Africa, different countries we have connections with. The collaboration is a way to really address the complexity of food systems. I hope people can hear me properly. I don't easily see you because we are not in a meeting room. I'm sorry for that. Oh yes, maybe a few examples still. So for example, one of the things I work on myself is an initiative to promote skills in the horticultural sector. So we work with a group of horticultural companies who are all active in East Africa, and a joint training initiative is being explored and developed. And the idea is that this training will also be integrated in different African countries. There is work in the dairy sector, for example. I won't go into the details. And thirdly, we have a community of practice on food systems. And that one is of interest to this particular webinar, since in that community of practice, based in the Netherlands, in fact, different institutions and practitioner organizations, as well as the academic institutes, have exchange on how to deal with food systems as an approach. And I will use that content in this presentation. So a few slides on the food systems in general, and I think it overlaps a lot with what earlier speakers said, but I hope you don't mind. So food systems thinking has gradually evolved in the international discourse, as you have seen, and at the same time in Indonesia, it has also been gradually evolved and even incorporated in your policy frameworks. If you analyze the food system, if you look at food systems, what happens in the food systems, it can be done at different levels. So different geographical levels, for example, the local food system, the national food system, Indonesia, or even the global food system, reports of, for example, the Eat Lancet Commission, reports of the World Economic Forum tackle the global food system and describe it. You can also have an analysis of the food system at different scopes. For example, you can start with a theme. One of our contacts have started with the theme of food waste. Why is there food wastage? Let's look at the food system and see which things influence the wastage. You can also work problem-based. For example, a youth does not get a job. What is the problem? What is the reason in the food system? For example, access to land is a difficulty. Why does that girl or young man doesn't have access to land? Well, then you have a problem-based analysis. You can have an actor view. For example, let's work with the youth, or let's work with a woman group and analyze the food system. So you can do that in different ways. And if you look at the schedule at the right hand, it's important. The work on food systems, in fact, starts from an assumption, and I put them here, that changes in the food systems are needed to achieve improved food security. It also assumes that if you have a good food systems analysis, that helps to intervene in the relevant domains. Then you don't stop at what you are used to do, but you can find possibly a better intervention. And you find really, if you find the right leverage point, as we call it, within the food system, you can have a higher, a better, more impactful effect. And there the picture is nice, I think. You see that it is like a balance. If you have a very yeah, if you have the right leverage point, I'm not sure whether you understand the picture immediately, but if you have a very small problem solving force, little money, possibly little resources, you push slightly on that part of the balance on the left hand, but you have a good leverage point, you can have a large effect on system behavior. So, for example, some policy influence work I was involved in myself in the past, yeah, if you have a right policy influencing campaign and you manage to get a decision maker change a decision, because the person is already quite motivated to start changing that, but you push slightly, that could have a large effect. And you don't have to start a program yourself to do it. Possibly it could be quickly fixed. But most things are not quickly fixed. Yeah, maybe also some picture still of food system thinking as a theory. I'm not sure whether people have seen this in the past, but if you really think about the food system carefully, it is important not to only look at the things that you can easily see on the top, events, what has just happened, but also really looking at patterns and trends, things that have happened in the past, underlying structures, or even mental models. To illustrate this, the Haas Education of Applied Science, University of Applied Science in Den Bosch, they used this one with a group of students to explore the issue of food wastage. And the interesting thing that the representative of Haas told us was that at the start, people think, okay, if you want to address food wastage, okay, what happens? Well, the tomatoes get spoiled when they are transported. So that's food wastage. But they went deeper and deeper. And later on, the deeper causes of food wastage, for example, were also consumer ideas on what is a proper food product. And some consumers tend to throw food away quite rapidly just because they are afraid that things are not good anymore. So deeper mental models may influence also behaviors that you see on the surface. Another example of a food system framework, I'm not sure whether people have seen that before. This one is used often in the Netherlands by different agencies. This one is of WUR 2 years ago. It's a bit similar to also the schedules that Mrs. Novalia showed you. A way of describing the food system can be like this, that in the blue charts, you see the whole food supply chain and the system with production, storage, food processing, retail, food consumption. And around this value chain, you see the different drivers of the food system. And you see the different, so the socioeconomic drivers, the environmental drivers. And on the right-hand side, you see the food security outcomes. Now, this presentation is not to go into the details of this one, but this can be used as a framework also if you analyze what happens in the food system. And I think it can help to also keep an eye on the consumer and what happens indeed at the level of food security, availability, access, utilization. It can keep an eye on that instead of focusing just on the left hand of the schedule, agricultural production. And I think in many cases, it's interesting to look at this and see where your particular intervention sits in this whole food system framework, and to use it as a framework also for analysis of where, what is happening and what can you improve. So if you apply a food system approach, I will have a few slides on how could you do that if you start. And I can imagine the participants in this call are part of different institutions with different responsibilities, but I will just still kind of explore a bit and explain a bit how people have discussed this in the Netherlands. And then the discussions were about applying this, for example, in countries such as Ethiopia or countries such as Nigeria. In different countries, some of them have worked in the Netherlands. So in different countries, this has been tested. And I can imagine possibly some of it is interesting if you want to test it in Indonesia. So one thing is very important, and I start with that, there is no blueprint for a food systems approach. So most of what I'm saying here are elements that people can tap into if they want to start doing it from their own perspective. But if you start applying a food systems approach, You can do it indeed. Well, I mentioned 4 ways in which you can start doing that here, 4 reasons. So you can have a problem and you use the food system perspective for that. For example, you sell a vegetable product, and you are a business and you sell a vegetable product, but the market actors say, well, this one is not safe, and I don't buy it from you because it's not safe. Then in fact, well, okay, what do you do as a farmer or as a small entrepreneur if your product is not considered safe? In fact, you need to look at vegetable safety as a system issue. You can see where in the system, it's not just value chain, but it's broader than that, are the bottlenecks for my products not to be safe, and how can I find others that want to work possibly with me? So that's starting from a problem from an individual entrepreneur maybe even, and then you can use a food systems perspective to find possibly the entry points for improvement. The second opportunity is, of course, the program perspective. Certain interventions by development organizations, by farmer organizations are program interventions. Possibly they are working for 2 years or something, and it doesn't really work yet as effective as one would have wanted. And to improve it, you can use a food systems perspective to look, do we have forgotten? Have we forgotten certain aspects? Can we improve? Similarly, the third point, if you want to explore opportunities for scaling, imagine you're a development organization, you work in a particular district in Indonesia, and you find that your solutions are quite interesting and it works well. For example, the land access opportunities that you illustrated in the previous presentation, how can it be scaled? Possibly a food systems perspective can help to find those opportunities. Then the fourth opportunity is at the planning phase. It's often also a government issue or an institution's issue. For example, look at the time frame 2010-21. You want to make a planning for next year or possibly for a 3-year phase. It is good to look at a broader food system, for example, at a province level or at the national level. And this is, for example, what was also done by a number of Netherlands agencies for countries, embassy country planning documents, both in West Africa, in Indonesia, in Ethiopia. It was not yet done in Indonesia. So for Ethiopia, for example, and for Nigeria, a food system analysis was made for the country planning of the embassy. And well, different examples, you see here a number of Dutch agencies that have worked with the food systems approach. So for example, the Wageningen University and KIT Royal Tropical Institute, they have developed an interesting toolkit for such country planning. Haas University, I mentioned them, ECDPM, possibly you know them, and HIVOS as an organization also active in Indonesia. They've also worked on approaches to work with the food system. So yeah, what are key things that you do if you start developing a food systems approach? So using the different toolkits that exist for analysis and decision making, we can share some of the links at the end of this presentation. Important also, if you want to do a food systems analysis and start basing your further action on that, is of course engaging stakeholders. No actor can do it on its own, because then, well, it can be an individual mental exercise or a student exercise, but in the end you want to work with others for solutions. Very important, if you start also a food systems analysis, is to see what is the scope. Are you talking about a province level? Are you talking about the perspective of the youth only? Are you talking about the responsibility of being a planning staff for
Punt.
Excuse me?
Sorry.
Oh.
You can continue, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right. Okay, so it depends also on the scope, and I think the scope setting is still interesting. Do you have a certain geographical scope? Do you have a certain thematic scope? And also it's important, if you start doing working with a food systems approach, understand for yourself, why are you doing this, and what is the reason that you do this, because it needs to have some focus and be clear what you are looking for. This is a slide explaining a bit, if you do a food systems analysis, it's important to involve the right stakeholders who are already the ones that can help also to foster the change. It also helps if you have a group of stakeholders to get more perspectives and to increase the chance of innovation. If you look, for example, well, the case of HIVOS in East Africa is interesting. They worked in Zambia and they worked in Uganda, and they started working with civil society groups to make an analysis of the local food system. And gradually it became clear that, for example, also for access to nutritious foods in city environments, there was a key role for food vendors, the informal vendors who sold fresh food in the streets, were the ones who played a crucial role of getting nutritious foods to large numbers of people in the city environment. So what HIVOS partners did in Uganda and Zambia was also communicating with those vendors and asking them what was important to them. In the end, one of the interventions was also to helping those informal traders improving some of their, I think, some of their conditions under which they did their job, which made, in fact, I think, several aspects of access to nutritious food better: safety, access, prices. So including the perspective of the vendors made the system intervention very practical because their information was relevant. So more to the bottom of my slide, I also invite, recommend, if you are involved in food systems analysis yourself in your context, to invite the right stakeholders for the understanding of the food system, and also, of course, to get the ownership if actions are identified. And it could be stakeholders from different sectors, stakeholders from different levels, also important stakeholders from different social markers, women and men, elderly or young people, people with different education or ethnic background. And of course, also maybe if you think about creativity, it's important to use different communication channels. Some people read the newspapers or their written publications, others use information from mobile phones. So it is important to vary that as well. I think Mrs. Novalia has done a lot of experience also working with the youth for that. So then if you do all these things, it is still challenging to turn the analysis of food system into action. Involving the right stakeholders, I have made some recommendations, but it's not easy, of course, to do that properly. We are indeed involved in the Netherlands also to start a food systems dialogue, and getting even the telephone numbers of certain groups that we want to involve was not easy. We need to kind of track and trace to find the right stakeholders to work with. Then another challenge we often hear from organizations working with food systems approach is setting the scope. Where do you start? Because if you want to describe, let's imagine, the whole food system of the Netherlands or the whole food system of Indonesia, it's very big. So you can end up days and days and days of even discussing what it is about. So setting the scope clearly, that today we talk about this geographical zone, or we talk about the perspective of these stakeholders, or we talk about this particular problem, that starts setting the scope. Well, and of course, the most important and most complex challenge is choosing a leverage point at which you want to start changing. Is the choice to work on, for example, land access as an issue. How did the group come to that? Of course, I think lengthy conversations and lots of years of experience lie underneath. And it will be if another group starts choosing another leverage point. It's not easy because there are often different priorities that compete for attention, and different problems that compete for attention. So choosing is still very complex. Then another final challenge of applying the food system approach is making it transformative. We have seen from those country level food systems analysis, for example, from Ethiopia. If you read the description, still many things that happen are being described. And before you get to the transformative phase, you may risk doing things that you did before, or partners do things that you did before. Some of those things that you did before are not bad, can be very important, but if you really want to have a system change agenda, it's a challenge to be transformative enough and find the spots where you can make a change. Some final tips from the community of practice of food systems on what you can do if you start working with the food systems perspective. It's important to find a good balance between short-term actions and wins and long-term actions, because some stakeholders will also need to see immediate improvements, whereas maybe the more structural issues take some time. The interventions need to have the triple outcomes: people, planet, profit, or social, ecological, and economical outcomes. It's important to create space to have a conversation about trade-offs, the competing interests of different people or the competing interests of different causes. It's not easy, and that's the societal conversation. That's also why multi-stakeholder conversation is important to have. Then, another tip is, of course, if you have an idea about a leverage point, some of the things can be changed via lobby and campaigning. Other things can be changed via a program intervention. It's important to also choose carefully where you get, what is your pathway to impact. And of course, at the same time, public policy, we have public policy makers here. It's important that certain things are part of the formal policy and the formal government programs, but some things cannot be done via that route, and then it's important to find other ways of influencing food system transformation. The case I start with, if you want to promote food safety for certain vegetables, it's on the one hand something you can solve via regulations and control systems and official government institutions. On the other hand, there could be also an issue of promoting the consumer demand for safe foods and making sure that you have consumer awareness campaigns. And both are part of a systemic approach. This was my presentation. As I hope it gives some ingredients for you to think about how you could use a food system approach in your different practices as you are here. I thank you for your attention. I thank also the NASO program for having invited me. You can find information on our website of the Netherlands Food Partnership, and you can earlier work on food systems. You can also find it on the Knowledge for Food, the Food and Business Knowledge Platform website. Thank you very kindly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nicole. It's very comprehensive, very complete information about food systems and also your experiences in advocating the food system approach in many countries. So I will recap a little bit that you mentioned very early about the world is not on track to achieve SDGs 2. So that's requiring systemic change, especially in food system change. And also you mentioned about the assumption, assumption of food system. First, it's to improve food security, you need to change the food system first. And then a food system analysis to intervene relevant actors, domains, also finding the right leverage points. Jadi yang dipresentasikan tadi oleh Nicole mengenai bahwa keterkaitan antara SDGs, bahwa saat ini dunia tidak dalam posisi on track untuk mencapai SDGs 2, zero hunger atau menghilangkan kelaparan. Oleh karena itu, karena tracknya tidak sesuai track, maka dari itu perlu ditransformasi sistemnya. Nah, food system approach atau pendekatan food system ini sangat penting. Jadi Nicole mention tentang asumsi-asumsi yang melatar belakangi food system ini. Pertama, untuk meningkatkan ketahanan pangan itu perlu mengubah sistem pangannya. Ya. Yang kedua, food system perlu dianalisis untuk mengintervensi relevan area-area yang relevan. Kemudian yang ketiga, itu kita perlu food system diperlukan untuk menemukan titik daya ungkit yang paling efektif. Ya, jadi informasi dari Nicole itu sangat penting. Ya, Nicole also share some tips and also some information about how to apply in food system. So thank you very much for your valuable information. And then let's move to the question and answer or discussion session. So we already have like 2 questions from the participants, I think. First question from Erwin. Yeah, Erwin from LIPI, I think Indonesian's Agency of Science. And then he asked Pak Jarod, Mr. Jarod, about Mr. Jarod mentioned before about to collaborate, asking the ideas if participants have ideas about the strategies of localizing food system. Yeah. So Erwin asked about how to give. I mean, where could we send our proposal or our idea? Maybe that's for Pak Jarod. The second question from Ali Salmande. Ali is currently working for Indonesian Parliament. This is a very important actors, I think, who attend our talk today. Yeah, he's working as a legal expert of Indonesian Member Parliament. Currently, he's preparing a bill on food bank for social welfare, which may be only a small part of food system as a whole. The aims of the bill to support the food bank organization in Indonesia and helping to reduce the food waste and loss as well as distribute the surplus for the needs. So the question from Ali is first for Nicole. Yeah, the question is, do you have any information about any regulation related to food bank in other countries that could Ali looks up to? And especially the countries that are in partnership with the Netherlands Food Partnership, maybe the issues of food bank from Africa or Asia, maybe you have experienced before. And second question for all the speakers, do you have any opinion or suggestions or insights that should be included in the bill? Yeah, I mean the food bank bill, especially related to reduce food waste or loss in household, restaurant, hotel, and how to distribute the surplus food to the needs. So maybe your answer will be very valuable, yeah, for the Parliament bill making, because yeah, the actor is here, Mr. Ali. So maybe first for Pak Jarod, maybe you can answer the first question from Erwin, please.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Ulil, and thank you very much for your question, Pak Erwin. Bapenas is very open to discuss further and to have your proposal, and it will be depend on the substance of your proposal. I mean, because our ministry is responsible at planning and budgeting scope. We are not doing a real activity. So if your proposal is related to planning and budgeting, we are more than happy to have that one, and we can discuss further. However, if your proposal is about to do some real activities, I may suggest you to connect with the technical ministries. It can be Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Health and other ministries, depend on the field that your proposal would like to do. But in principle, we are open to discuss further. And in Bapenas, we are facilitating to build a multi-stakeholder platform in food system. We call it platform pangan bijak. I do not know how to what is in English, platform pangan bijak. Probably Mas Ulil can help me. And that within that platform, we do several serial discussion and also deep analysis, and it consists of not only government official, but also NGOs, research institution, and also local government. And the discussion, I mean in the participant topic will be different. So then we invite some relevant participant, depend on the discussion. Mungkin itu Pak Ulil. Jadi terima kasih Pak Erwin, dan kita siap untuk komunikasi lebih lanjut.
Terima kasih Pak Jarod. Mungkin langsung bisa dijawab pertanyaan kedua, ya, yang tentang food bank. Apakah ada masukan, opini atau insight gitu?
Iya, untuk food bank atau terkait dengan food waste and food loss and waste, the government have several cooperation actually. There are several initiatives. For example, P4G stand for Partnership for Government. One activity under P4G is related to food loss and waste as well. And in Indonesia, it is organized by ABCSD. Mungkin teman-teman paham ya. Dan itu bekerja sama dengan WARP UK. Inisiatif lain adalah Pakta Milan. Under Pakta Milan, we have 5 cities as a piloting to have so-called food smart cities. Ada yang di Solo, di Bandung, ada 5 kota, Depok juga, dan food waste and loss itu bagian dari Pakta Milan juga. Yang lain adalah di bawah Volu itu apa kepanjangannya ya? Forest and land use, food and land use. Itu ada beberapa organisasi juga yang bergabung di sana dan sudah melakukan beberapa pendekatan dengan beberapa industri untuk melakukan pengurangan dari food waste. Mungkin sebagai masukan untuk Pak Ali, mungkin beberapa isu itu antara lain kesulitan bagi beberapa perusahaan itu untuk melakukan aktivitas food bank itu karena terkait dengan aturan-aturan kesehatan, sehingga nanti mereka akan masih takut kalau misalnya nanti ada masalah untuk keamanan pangan, untuk disu dan lain sebagainya. Sekarang di P4G itu sedang dikembangkan voluntary agreement dengan beberapa perusahaan. Dan yang lain mungkin sebetulnya di lapang itu sudah banyak berkembang ya untuk food waste itu, yang sudah dilakukan misalnya beberapa hotel itu memberikan berapa kilo food waste yang mereka hadapi di restoran mereka. Jadi mereka pasang kilogram food waste itu di restoran mereka. Jadi tiap orang yang masuk restoran ngeh gitu, oh ternyata kita membuang banyak food waste. Jadi best practices itu mungkin bisa diusulkan untuk dilakukan semacam knowledge and best practices pool gitu ya, terkait dengan food loss and waste. So then we can identify and also we can collect best practices of food loss and waste di Indonesia, di seluruh Indonesia, and then everybody can learn. Beberapa daerah juga bisa mengadopsi dan lain sebagainya. Mungkin itu dari kami. Mohon maaf kalau terlalu panjang.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Jarod atas jawabannya. Saya pikir Pak Ali ya ada satu informasi dari Pak Jarod ya. So Pak Jarod said that many initiative actually that has been done on food bank issues in Indonesia, also many piloting using a multi-stakeholders approach, a partnership in partnership schemes. But the challenge, one of the challenges, the difficulties of the private sectors, related to safety issues. Yeah, I think it's also a matter on applying food bank concept. So it will like maybe the challenge for that should be noted by Pak Ali. And then maybe Nicole, maybe you can respond the question from Ali about the food bank. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's very interesting that Mr. Ali Salmande is here in the call. Indeed, I think what I did. So I don't immediately have information on the lessons from food banks in the Netherlands that I can share with you now, but I can find information later. I think in the field that we are active in, you see two sides. I think there's lots of work on social protection. So which mechanisms work for the poorest sections of society, and the different social protection measures, I think, could be the ones in which you also frame your food bank initiative. And on the other hand, I think it's linked, as you said, to the food wastage problem, and indeed to also for safety, etc., all the considerations of food wastage. And here, I think for the food wastage analysis, you can tap into the example I just put in the chat of the work done by the school I just referred already to. And I can imagine that for yourself, some further analysis of how that food wastage problem can be addressed can help as a background for your bill. And you could indeed, but I don't know how you have worked so far, but you could consider still having some stakeholder engagement in the conversation on that. Since also the food wastage as a problem needs, of course, true system interventions and not those interventions that are, let's call them, if you don't forgive me, that are just charity. Yeah? If one supermarket has one box of something and gives it to poor people, that's too small a scale. Huh? So I can imagine you want a bigger scale, and then it's good to look at really the systemic flaws in that lie underneath food wastage, and then combine that with social protection ambitions that you have in your bill. But I think it's really appreciated if you work on that. And after this call, I can send a bit more information via Ulil for you if you like to.
Thank you, Nicole, for your answer. Maybe for Pak Ali Salamande. Yeah, and then next, how about Nova? Maybe you have some insights about the questions.
Thank you for the questions. So, Mr. Ali, your work is really appreciated, and that's a great movement. As we know that, I also mentioned earlier that it is claimed that the production is increasing, but on the other side, there is still hunger and malnutrition. It could be because of so many reasons. One of them are food loss during the distribution or food waste in consumption stage. So I think because there is an inequality in the distribution of food and also in the consumption stage. So maybe what I can recommend is to bridging the company or hotels or restaurant with social organizations or NGO that work closely with marginal groups. So I don't know, maybe is it possible if there is a provision maybe that state that the hotel, restaurant or company need to have a collaboration with the social organizations or the NGO that work closely with the marginal groups. And maybe that's only a recommendation for me. And I have an additional information about COVID relation. Ulil, may I share some?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay, so let me see the number first. So yeah, about how land access that I mentioned is also related to handling a pandemic effect. So as we know that in February 2020, the number of unemployed people was recorded at 6 million people, or around 4.9%, the data from Statistic Indonesia. And as of May 2020, there is about 1.7 million workers that have been affected by COVID, and the open unemployment rate is estimated at 9%. So many migrants are forced to return to the village because they have been dismissed from their jobs due to the impact of COVID. So this return is increasing the number of unemployed in the village, right? So given that, the village had to find ways how people could stay empowered by getting jobs. So with the allocation of land, or what AK3 is doing right now for marginalized group, in this case, is the unemployed is also included in this category. So the land allocation can be one of the ways to overcome or to manage unemployment by providing employment in the agricultural sector by doing farming. So I think that's that's all.
Thank you, Nova. So about the answer, the response of the questions about Nicole says before. Jadi food bank, kebijakan food bank ya bisa di frame menggunakan framework social protection. Jadi karena memang banyak ya cantolan-cantolan yang bisa digunakan, saya pikir yang saya tangkap dari Nicole ya, social protection could be used as a frame for food bank policies. Also, but also what Pak Jaro mentioned before, we also need to take into account the intersection with the health issues, especially for safety issues and food safety and many things. And then also from Nova, it is required, of course, collaborations with the social organizations. I think it's very relevant what we discussed before about applying food system approach, engage stakeholders. I think first we need to engage stakeholders to get many ideas and many notions or many insights from different perspectives, maybe from health institutions, also from social workers or social organizations. Maybe we should sit together. I think that's response from the speakers for Bapak Ali Salmande. I hope it will be valuable for your current job. It's preparing a bill, for food bank, and it's very fun for our topic today is about sustainable food systems. And Nova also added about the impact of COVID and then the strategies that she mentioned before about land access for the youth, and it could improving land access in the village level also could be a strategy to also to this sustainable food system in the village level, I think. And it's very thank you for your additional information, Nova. And let's see. Maybe the speakers want to ask another speakers. Maybe Nicole, Pak Jarod, or Nova. Maybe if you have questions, you can maybe just deliver it, or maybe any question from the speakers to the other speakers, maybe.
Bu Nova dulu kayaknya.
Nova?
Gak apa-apa Pak, silakan.
Okay. Or Pak Jarod or Nicole?
Oh ya, baik. Makasih. Youth issue is very interested for me because it is very relevant in agriculture. We can see that aging is growing fast in rural areas and also in agro-food sector. And this issue is not only Indonesian issues, actually. It is global issues. And rural youth is one of the topic that is discussed under G20. Jadi ini memang isu besar yang harus kita lakukan bersama, dan yang sudah kami inisiasi, kami fasilitasi adalah how can we attract rural youth into agricultural sector, antara lain dengan pertanian presisi, pertanian digital, dan juga kita memfasilitasi beberapa startup pertanian. Sekarang ada sekitar mungkin lebih dari 15 startup pertanian, sehingga dengan teknologi kita harapkan, teknologi di sektor pertanian ya, kita harapkan pemuda-pemudi itu semakin tertarik dengan sektor pertanian. Mungkin itu. Dan kalau ada masukan misalnya tadi kasus yang sangat baik dari AK3 tadi, how can we maksudnya inisiasi dari pemerintah untuk memanfaatkan lahan kas desa itu sangat baik sekali untuk mengengage rural youth di dalam sektor pertanian. Mungkin itu apresiasi dari kami. Terima kasih.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Jarod. And maybe Nicole, do you have any questions or specific or no?
Let me just. Yeah, I mean, I would like to know for example, yeah, for the work with the youth that you did, Novali, would your work be? I mean, you have focused very much on land access, and you have also made improvements there, and I think it's a very interesting work, and urgent. Would you think that with your groups, you could also do a further analysis of additional problems that they want to tackle, or do you do that already? I mean, I presented a bit more theoretical framework on how you could do an analysis, but I wonder whether you did that also with your constituency, to have a conversation on where the food system could be improved. Did you do that at some point, or how does that work? I would like to understand it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question, Pak Jarod and Miss Nicole. So for the first one from Pak Jarod, that is true that young people is very innovative with their technology and also creativity. And maybe if I can add some about Bappenas strategy in food system, maybe you can insert young people and land resources as one of strategy in achieving a better food system, because I think I haven't seen about young people and also land resources in your graph. So maybe you can put some points about young people and also land resources. Thank you, Pak Jarod, and looking forward to work with Bappenas as well. And for Nicole, yes, we do further analysis besides land resources, because what we are doing right now is not only to open the access to land for youth, but also open the access to alternative market for youth. Because as we know that conventional market is not in favor of the farmers, because farmers is not benefiting enough with conventional market today. So we are also doing some research in alternative market, what kind of alternative markets that fit in especially for village farmers. So in one side, young people and also landless farmers can have the access to land, but after that, what we can do, so we bridge them to the alternative markets, so they will benefit more, they will have, or they will generate more income through that alternative markets. So that those are our focus right now. Thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting to know, because indeed that, in fact, maybe I can talk a bit from practice. The work that we are involved in, also in contact with a number of Dutch companies that are active in East Asia. Some of them are active in the horticultural sector also, and they said it is important to work with youth to build the capacities to be able to work in horticulture for different crops. And that could be indeed linked to your initiative, because indeed, if more people have the capacity to start new crops, for example, with those capacity, they can use the spaces identified in the market opportunities identified. Yes. So this initiative somehow links with what you are doing. Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
And looking forward to work with Knowledge for Food as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for all the response. So because we are running out of time, it's already 4 o'clock. Yeah, in Jakarta, and I think it's already 2 hours. Yeah, yeah, we have this meeting, and then yeah, it's very interesting. Presentation, also discussion from all the speakers and the participants. Also, it's I think it's also we already discussed about valuable information for for example, Pak Ali from the Parliament and from LIPI. Yeah, Mr. Erwin from the questions. I think we have a lot of opportunities to engage together, especially in this forum. We have here many maybe Netherlands alumni or from practitioners, from policymakers, and etc., and also from students. Yeah. So I think this is the end of the discussion session, and also the end of our Orange Talk. So let me close a little bit about the summary of our event today. So achieving sustainable food system or using a food system approach requires, of course, a holistic and comprehensive, also collaborative work to implement. And then, as Nicole mentioned before, there is no specific blueprint, for this food system approach. But every countries, every entities could experiment it, could try it, and then also make an effort to do that. And every actors also required to reflect their allies and try to connect and collaborate their work each other to increase leverage of the transformation steps, creating the enabling conditions for everyone. Like, for example, NOVA using the strategies for youth and access to land, or also mentioned before about food bank, a lot of food initiatives that need to be collaborated together. And then again, we should use food system thinking to see these initiatives. So again, thank you for our speakers today. Pak Jarod Indarto from Bappenas, Nicole Metz, and Novalia Nurfitriani, and all of the committee of the Orange Talk Session 1. And I hope you can still be able to be reached, and to be invited again to our next events. And I hope after this we can communicate each other, build network, and maybe if we have any questions, we can call you or contact you to the other events. Thank you again for the Alumni Network and all of the participants who attend the Orange Tech Talk today. And I want to inform you that next Orange Talk will be held on December 2020 on the topic of water and infrastructure. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for your kind attentions. I'm Muhammad Ulil Hasan. We can close this Orange Talk today. So thank you very much and selamat sore. I will give back to Neso Indonesia. Mas Dito, please. Thank you, Nicole, Pak Jarod, and Nova.
Thank you, Mas Ulil. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Pak Jarod. Thank you, Mbak Novalia, for your great presentation. It's very, very nice to listen you all. Saya juga atas nama Nufikneso Indonesia mengucapkan terima kasih pada seluruh teman-teman alumni yang juga sudah hadir di sini dalam kesempatan sore hari ini. Perlu kami informasikan bahwasanya Nufikneso Indonesia akan juga bekerja sama dengan Kedutaan Besar Belanda, NWO, LIPI, KNAW, dan ALMI akan menyelenggarakan WINER, Week of Indonesian Netherlands Education and Research, that will be organized and held on 24 to 26 of November 2020. If you are interested in joining the event, just go to the WINER website, www.winner.or.id. Okay, see you next time in the next occasion. Assalamualaikum. Terima kasih. Let me close ya.
Salam. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Pak Ulil.
Terima kasih Bapak
Thank you.
semua.
Pak
Jarod,
Nova, Pak Tito.
Amalia,
Thank you, Pak Jarod
Mas
and
Wardi,
Miss
Mbak
Nicole.
Anastasia semuanya.